is up, Starlings? Welcome back to a brand new Stargirl video, and today, it just feels great to talk about Stargirl again because I didn't think I would be talking about it so soon after Season 1 wrapped up, but hey, quite a few of you have asked me to cover some of the teases and just questions that Geoff Johns has answered from a TV Line article. So, you know, this is kind of diving into some of the stuff coming out of the finale, some teasers for Season 2, and then I want to give my response to that because I believe I have a lot to say. I can kind of get into the nitty-gritty details and I suppose some predictions, and we can see if that even pans out come Season 2. And some of the stuff in this is pretty interesting. So as usual, guys, I will leave the article in the top pinned comment in the comment section if you want to check it out for yourself, but I will be reading out most of it and then in between each question and answer, giving my opinion on it. And of course, I would absolutely love to hear your thoughts on what Geoff Johns had to say about Season 1 finale and the Season 2 teasers down in the comments. So if you're a big Stargirl fan, you enjoyed Season 1, you may have had some speculation already out of some of the things we got out of that finale. Well, sit down, strap yourself in for some Stargirl bonus round, stuff. So let's get into this. So coming out of the finale, I feel like one of the heaviest moments involved Yolanda. She seems to be in a dark place now, clearly having trouble processing that she took a life. Now, Geoff said, yes, very much so. That's going to be a big part of Season 2, her struggle with that. You see it when they're sitting on the bleachers, you see this relief on Rick's face, you can see that he found peace, and I love that moment when Courtney says, "Are you okay?" And he says, "Yeah," because there is so much in that "yeah" for him. He's starting to kind of turn a corner, whereas we see Yolanda turning the other way. As she is sitting a bit distant from the other kids, she's lost in her own world, thinking about what she has done. There's definitely something that will play a major role going into Season 2. How is she going to deal with what she's done? It's not just, oh, she took out a villain, it's, oh, she killed somebody. Rick was ready to kill someone and she was not. Now, this is something, if you guys watched my review, I'm very happy about hearing. It was kind of obvious anyway, because I did point out when they were sat down and Yolanda was just kind of staring off into space, and then even getting into the whole Eclipso speculation, I thought that maybe it could be a cool possible storyline in Season 2 if Eclipso managed to possess Yolanda. Now, in the comics, there's a little bit of a different story, and it's with Yolanda's cousin, even though on the show, Yolanda's cousin in the comics is her brother in the show. So there's a billion ways they can go. I just feel like with the nature of Eclipso, and if you haven't seen my video breaking down the Season 2 cliffhangers and teasers such as Eclipso, The Shade, and many other things, I will leave that in the cards above because you can get a lot out of that video. I'm honestly quite excited for Yolanda in Season 2 because I feel like, you know, these are kids at the end of the day. They got kind of catapulted into heroichood, if that's even a word, and I don't think it's going to be that straightforward for Yolanda. I mean, obviously not. As Geoff just said, it's going to be a big part of Season 2. She killed Brainwave, she took a life, she didn't really have any closure with Henry King Jr., and honestly, guys, I wouldn't be surprised if she goes down a little bit of the dark side of the Force in Season 2. I mean, let me know your speculations, and if you agree with that, and if you do think she's going to go a little bit dark side, let me know how. Do you think that she could be possessed by the Heart of Darkness, you know, if she came into contact with it, if that is the Heart of Darkness or just like a fragment of the Heart of Darkness, doesn't really matter, it will still do the same thing. And if you're wondering what the heck I'm on about that little gem or diamond, if you will, that Cindy found at the very end, and that is a comic book villain known as Eclipso. Once again, a video breaking that character down is in the cards above. So the next question they asked is, that was a pretty cruel thing you did there, making Yolanda and us think for a second that Henry was back. Were you counting on the fact that fans were quite vested in that character somehow returning? Geoff says 100%. One of the things we always knew when building the season, and Jake knew this from day one, is that Henry had a finite story. Henry was going to go from this almost unlikable bully to possibly a redeemed hero, and then ultimately die protecting his new friends when facing his father, while also learning a lesson that Courtney imparted on him and apologizing to Yolanda. For us, it was a really beautiful arc, and I sat down with Jake before he signed on and talked about the story because Jake is such an amazing actor and said this is what his story is throughout Season 1, and that bit in episode 13 was playing to the superhero trope of nobody ever dies and then subverting it. And he goes on to talk a little bit about Brainwave because how everyone hates him, but obviously they like the character, and that's somewhat of a main villain because of how cold and cruel he is and what he does to his his own son, so he wanted to make sure that the payback was fairly vicious. His cruelty came back to him tenfold. And to be honest, yeah, I'm a bit bummed that Christopher James Baker is not going to be on the show anymore because, well, I'll get to this a little bit later, but he may or may not basically confirm Brainwave's death if that wasn't so obvious from what Yolanda did. And that's because I was still hoping that Jake Austin Walker could have a future in the show. Whether that is honestly season 3 or season 4, I wasn't expecting it anytime soon. But if you guys didn't know already, I spoke a lot about this with Jake Austin Walker in my interview with him, which, yet again, I'll leave in the cards above, just because, you know, in the comics, he is Brainwave Jr., he has a whole suit, and I could have seen that going into the show. There's even comic book storylines where, you know, and in a similar way to the show, how Brainwave said that he absorbed his consciousness, or his power, sorry, not his consciousness, they didn't confirm that, don't get me wrong, but it was kind of like a little avenue or a little teaser for how Henry King Jr. could be within his father's mind, unbeknownst to Henry King, Brainwave himself. So that could have been like set up for one day, but with the death of Brainwave, it doesn't look like that's going to happen. So I don't know, I wanted to read this question out. There wasn't really any mega revelations, but I just feel like I have quite a bit of an opinion on Henry King Jr. And hey, as I said, if you haven't seen it already, I get into a lot of things. We go mega in depth about Stargirl season 1, and also whilst I'm mentioning this, there is another TV Line article talking with Geoff Johns, literally about the show again, but about the move to the CW. And Geoff Johns essentially just echoes what me and Jake Austin Walker spoke about, because I thought I'd take the opportunity to ask him his opinion about Stargirl moving from DC Universe to the CW and if that will compromise any quality. And yeah, he more or less echoes the same thing, and for all I know, I'm about to show it right now. But how do you feel about the move of the production of Stargirl moving from DC Universe to the CW? And do you feel like it could impact the quality of the show in any way, shape, or form? I know Geoff is still on board. And will there be anything that you can offer your insight on that could change?
Yeah, I know I have faith no matter what in the cast and Geoff, and like this is his baby. You know what I mean? Like he will not let anything taint it. So I personally think it's going to be completely fine. I think they're going to do an amazing job. I think one thing that works in their favor is a lot of the heroes are very practical. So I don't think you're going to see crazy, you know, cuts. Like you're not going to see like the budget cuts. I don't think they're going to be evident in my opinion. Like I really do think it's going to work out fine. And also just like looking back at it.
So the next question opens up a few avenues I could definitely get into. So the manifesto that Beth came across, was that a misdirect, or was the ISA really looking to brainwash everyone into becoming Green Deal loving supporters of universal healthcare? And Geoff says it's partially true, but there's much more to it than what they were going to do, as each one of the villains certainly has their own agenda. We'll see a little bit more of what the surviving villains wanted and want still in season 2. But yeah, Icicle's view of the world is strange. In his mind, he thinks his point of view is perfect. As he says, what if you could cure cancer, but it would take 500,000 lives right now? You'd have to kill 500,000 people, but cancer is gone forever. Would you do it? I think it's still a really interesting question for a villain to pose, and I 100% agree there, because what Stargirl does, and it's kind of like a little bit of a cliche now, it's becoming the new norm, which is a great thing, in that villains who believe they're doing the right thing, like Icicle, are a lot more interesting. They believe they're the good guy, and they'll almost try and achieve that by any means necessary, and that's what made Icicle such an interesting villain this season, and well, the whole ISA, but mainly Icicle and a bit more of Brainwave, even though Brainwave was a bit more of evil for evil's sake, albeit that he, with his powers, had a lot more of an explanation behind that. And while we're on that topic, if a villain is going to be evil for just evil's sake, I do prefer the way they did it with Brainwave. As I said, his powers kind of took him out of touch from humanity. He despised people because nobody had a good thought. Like in his mind, you know, and you can almost see it because Henry King Jr. himself almost went down that road. There's a bit more substance to the evil for evil's sake in Brainwave. But the other key factor of what Geoff said here is we'll see a little bit more of what the surviving villains wanted and want still in season 2. So don't forget, guys, you know, we do still have the Gambler. We still do have Sportsmaster and Tigress. I do have a little bit of a nitpick there, though, and I think I mentioned this in my review, but it's like, you know, I think it was 6 weeks later, after the finale, or during the finale, should I say, when it was Christmas. It's like, did Pat and Stargirl not think to go back to the ISA HQ, because it's just like weird that the Shade is just rocked up in there. You would have to think maybe they went back to get rid of Brainwave's body or something, but if that's the case, where was Sportsmaster and Tigress? I'm absolutely fine with them waking up and getting away, I suppose. But I don't know, it just feels like, obviously this isn't realistic, but they should have set some demolition charges or something, got S.T.R.I.P.E in there to just destroy the ISA HQ underground, because it just feels a bit odd to me that, oh, let's just leave it there for other villains to occupy if that's the case. Maybe they honestly didn't think that would happen, but they should have, considering you still have the Gambler out there, Sportsmaster, Tigress. It just seems a little bit irresponsible. But either way, I'm super excited to see what the other surviving villains wanted. I mean, it does feel a little bit harder to believe that Sportsmaster and Tigress were all about, some of the things that were on that manifesto, going green and everything like that. It just feels like those guys wouldn't be so much about that. Maybe even the Gambler. So their other motivations were probably a lot more selfish, a lot more, I don't know, I guess evil, you would say, than Jordan. Because even though Jordan was a villain, he did, in his own twisted way, want to make the world a better place. And I do kind of struggle to believe that for people like Sportsmaster and, Tigress and even the Gambler. Now, there are some people reading into this following question. Outside of Brainwave, are there any villain deaths you want to confirm? And Geoff says, I don't want to confirm anything because it's too much fun to leave it open, and he laughs. And then they go and say, but Brainwave, definitely, yeah, he's dead. So he kind of did confirm one, but even though that was kind of obvious. So I think some people are using this to look into, characters such as Icicle or maybe other characters, and I'm just not mega sure. I feel like Geoff honestly was just responding saying, I don't want to confirm anything because, it is too much fun to leave it open when people do go into deep dives about characters who did seemingly die, like Dragon King or Icicle, and that it's a comic book world, so at the end of the day, it is plausible for anyone to come back. As Geoff Johns said himself about Henry King Jr. when we were talking about that, it's the classical kind of comic book trope of nobody ever really dies in that world. So yeah, I do get it, but I honestly do think he was just kind of saying it's too much fun when fans go that far to speculate. But I have seen many of you comment that Icicle, could have rematerialized his shards of ice and I guess come back to his own body. I don't know if they're going to do that. I do feel like Jordan Marquand doesn't necessarily have much of a future in the show. Maybe he would if he appeared in like season 3 again. I feel like it would be good to forget about him for some time and then for him to pop up again in a much later season. Not much later, but I feel like next season should be about, the Shade and Eclipso and these other villains that could be possibly coming to the show. So yeah, I honestly do believe Dragon King is dead. Well, Dragon King may be different, but I don't know. I got a feeling he is dead, but I would be more inclined to believe that he would somehow be rummaging around over Jordan, because Dragon King is kind of like the king, well, no pun intended there, of bringing back zombified people, so maybe he had a little bit of a backup plan there. Maybe he had some self-healing properties that he managed to get away. I don't know, though. These are all questions that weren't really mega ironed out, as I said, because there were bodies on the floor, but we just got 6 weeks later. We have no idea what the new JSA and Pat Dugan did when they went back to the ISA HQ, assuming that they did. So it's like all these questions that somebody like me has because they did leave it out, and it's just, it's kind of important to know. But as always, guys, I'm open to everyone's opinion. So with what Geoff said there, with how he doesn't want to confirm anything, do you think that could mean a villain who died in the finale may come back? Let me know down in the comments. So this is where TV Line finally asked, as far as the assorted threats you teased for Season 2, you gave us the Shade, Shiv, and Eclipso, whatever Isaac the Tuber Turd does next, with or without his mother's leftover violin case, and whomever or whatever Joel McHale is playing in that very final scene. So Geoff said, Eclipso is one of my very favorite villains in the books, and he's somebody who in the comics actually killed Beth Chapel and Yolanda Montez, and they never came back until recently. They were dead before I ever got into comics in the 90s, but I brought them back at the end of Doomsday Clock. Eclipso is a really interesting character because he embodies darkness and corruption. The Shade we obviously set up, and there are more character and other surprises we haven't even hinted yet for season 2. So that was pretty interesting. Yet again, when he says Eclipso is a really interesting character because he embodies darkness and corruption, that kind of goes back to what I was saying about, what if for an episode or 2-episode arc, we maybe have Yolanda going dark because of her, being, possessed by Eclipso. That would be pretty dope. They could go a billion different ways with that, especially as, if you didn't know already, Eclipso prays, is especially compatible with people who have a bit of baggage and anger alongside them, which Yolanda definitely seems to be kind of dealing with in season 2. But when he says there are more character and other surprises we haven't even hinted at yet for season 2, man, this could be anything. This could be what you guys have been wanting with, somebody taking up the Green Lantern mantle, whether that's Jakeem Thunder taking up the Thunderbolt pen, of which I've already voiced I'm just really still not sure about if they're going to do straight away, unless it's more of a recurring role. So, for example, if you had the Alan Scott children come to the show, I don't think they would be regulars. I think we could have characters like that come to the show. I'm definitely not saying we won't have more new-esque JSA members, but I feel like those type of characters would come in and just be out and about. Kind of like Justin, Shining Knight. He wasn't in each and every kind of episode with loads of screen time like you typically have Rick, Beth, and Yolanda, and obviously Courtney Whitmore herself. But honestly, I'm really excited by this because I've said this a few times, we haven't even hinted at yet for season 2 with more character and other surprises. So that could honestly mean anything. The potential is limitless, it feels like. And with Geoff Johns and this show being his baby, I think he's really gonna bring it home. Like, there's gonna be some stuff up jaws will drop over, I think. And I you could name anything. This is why I'm not naming anything particularly specific, because it could be anything. So let me know what you think he could be hinting at down in the comments below. What would you like to see with the more characters and other surprises? New villains on top of the Shade coming in, or maybe new JSA members, or maybe more artifacts. God, there's so much stuff. It'd be so cool if we saw some of the other 7 Soldiers of Victory, since that's where Justin was heading off to find them. So there's so much stuff, guys, and this is why I wanted to make this video, because I feel like it's quite a cool scoop of information that the TV Line website has given us here, and I just wanted to give my take on it. Talking about these new characters as well, I do of course want to mention DC Fandom, where we're obviously getting some discussion about Stargirl there, of which I think you have to assume at least that we're going to get some teasers for Stargirl season 2, which is pretty much guaranteed. So hopefully we do get some more teasers of these new characters and other surprises that Geoff is hinting at. So yeah, God, everybody get ready. Hopefully this serves as kind of like a DC Fandom hype video. Who knows? But other than that, guys, I think that's it. So like the video if you did enjoy it. I love making these Stargirl videos for you guys, so let me know if you want to see any extra videos, or if you have any video suggestions on Stargirl related content. Other than that, subscribe for more videos like this. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram, and I do have a Discord server that is always linked in the top pinned comment down in the comment section. But thank you so much for watching, everybody. I hope you all have a lovely rest of your day, and I'll see you starlings in the next video. Goodbye.